Ambassador Lyria Velshara stood before the mirror in her diplomatic quarters, adjusting the ceremonial marriage sash for the third time. The crimson fabric bearing the royal seal of the Galactic Coalition felt heavy across her shoulders, not from its weight, but from the burden it represented. Today, she would marry a man she'd never met. A human. A soldier from Earth who'd been selected through political lottery to cement the fragile alliance between humanity and the Velsharan Empire. Her reflection stared back, pale lavender skin that marked her as nobility, silver hair braided with honor beads earned through years of diplomatic service, and violet eyes that had negotiated treaties across a dozen star systems. At 32 cycles, she was considered young for an ambassador but old to be unmarried. Her duty had always come first, until now when duty demanded she become a bride. "Ambassador, he's arrived," her aide announced through the door. "Captain Marcus Chen of the Terran Defense Force." Lyria took a deep breath, straightening her spine with practiced poise. She'd studied his file obsessively over the past week. Marcus Chen, aged 28 in Earth years, decorated combat veteran, recipient of the Solar Cross for valor during the Krill border wars. No living family, parents lost in the same conflict that had necessitated this alliance. Psychological profile indicated quiet intensity, tactical brilliance, and a tendency toward self-sacrifice in combat situations. The file hadn't mentioned what he looked like, what he sounded like, or whether he resented this arrangement as much as she feared she might. The ceremony hall was smaller than traditional Velsharan weddings demanded, a concession to the political sensitivity of the union. Only essential witnesses attended, military officials from both sides, a handful of diplomats, and the High Chancellor who would officiate. No family, no friends, just duty wrapped in ceremonial trappings. When Marcus entered from the opposite doorway, Lyria's breath caught despite herself. He stood just over 6 feet tall, his Terran military dress uniform immaculate, dark hair cut in the severe military style, but with enough length to show a slight wave. His features were striking, strong jawline, sharp cheekbones, and eyes so dark they appeared black in the dim lighting. But it was the way he carried himself that arrested her attention. Coiled power held in perfect check, like a weapon sheathed but ready. Their eyes met across the ceremonial space, and something passed between them, recognition, perhaps, or resignation to shared fate. The ceremony was mercifully brief. Ancient Velsharan vows spoken in her native tongue, followed by simplified human equivalents. Marcus's voice was deep, steady, revealing none of the emotion he must surely feel. When the moment came to seal the bond with the traditional mark, a luminescent tattoo that would appear on both their wrists, Lyria extended her hand. Marcus took it with surprising gentleness. His hand was calloused, warm, completely enveloping hers. The marking device activated, and twin symbols blazed to life on their skin, intertwined stars representing 2 worlds, 2 peoples, 2 strangers bound by political necessity. "By the authority of the Galactic Coalition and the Velsharan Empire, you are now bonded," the High Chancellor intoned. "May your union bring peace to both our peoples." The witnesses applauded politely. Lyria felt nothing but emptiness. This was duty fulfilled, nothing more. She'd married a stranger, a warrior whose life she'd now share in name only. They'd maintain separate quarters, appear at required functions, and otherwise live parallel lives that never truly intersected. That was the arrangement, the expectation, the reality of political marriages. As they turned to leave the ceremony hall, Marcus leaned slightly closer, his voice pitched for her ears alone. "I know you didn't choose this any more than I did, Ambassador, but I'll try to make it bearable." Something in his tone, respect mixed with resignation, made Lyria look at him more carefully. In his dark eyes, she saw not the resentment she'd feared, but understanding. He knew exactly what this was, two people sacrificing personal happiness for the greater good. "As will I, Captain," she replied softly. Neither of them could have known that within 6 months everything would change. The Krill attack came without warning on a quiet diplomatic morning. Lyria was reviewing trade agreements in her office when the station alarms shrieked to life. Through her viewport, she watched in horror as Krill warships, dozens of them, erupted from hyperspace like a swarm of mechanical locusts. The insectoid race had been quiet for years since the border wars, rebuilding in the shadows. Now they returned with overwhelming force. "All diplomatic personnel to emergency evacuation shuttles," the automated system blared. "This station is under attack. All military personnel report to battle stations." Lyria grabbed her emergency kit and ran. The corridors filled with panicked civilians, smoke, and the distant sound of hull breaches. She was 50 meters from the shuttle bay when the ceiling collapsed in front of her, cutting off the escape route. Behind her, the sound of Krill boarding pods punching through the station's hull sent ice through her veins. "Ambassador!" Marcus appeared through the smoke like an apparition, still fastening his combat armor. "This way." "The shuttles," she started, "are gone or destroyed. I've got an alternative. Move." He took her hand, the one bearing their bonding mark, and pulled her through corridors she didn't recognize, maintenance passages and service tunnels that bypassed the main thoroughfares. Other soldiers joined them, falling into formation around Marcus with practiced ease. They didn't question his authority, they simply followed. "Captain Chen has secured an auxiliary hangar," one soldier reported. "But we've got Krill between us and the ship." "Then we go through them," Marcus said simply. His voice had changed, Lyria realized. The quiet, reserved man she'd shared awkward dinners with over the past months had vanished, replaced by something harder, sharper, almost primal. They reached a junction where a Krill shock squad had established a choke point. The insectoid warriors stood 8 feet tall, their chitinous armor glowing with energy shields, plasma weapons charged and ready. 12 of them against Marcus's squad of 7. "Stay behind me," Marcus ordered Lyria, unslingling his rifle. Then to his squad, "Serpent pattern on my mark." What happened next would later be replayed across every military academy in human space. Marcus moved with impossible speed and precision. He didn't charge blindly, he flowed, each movement economical and devastating. His first shot took out the Krill commander's shield generator. His second shot killed it before the creature could react. Then he was among them, his rifle becoming an extension of his body, each shot perfectly placed in the gaps of Krill armor. But it was more than just skill. Lyria watched in awe as Marcus seemed to predict each enemy movement before it happened. He'd duck before the plasma bolt arrived, sidestep before the blade struck, counter before the attack launched. It was as if he existed half a second ahead of reality, seeing the battle unfold before it happened. The Krill squad fell in under 90 seconds. "Move!" Marcus barked, already advancing. His squad followed, awe evident on their faces. They fought through 3 more krill positions. Each time Marcus performed the impossible. He took wounds, a plasma burn across his shoulder, a blade cut along his ribs, but never slowed, never faltered. His eyes had changed, Lyria noticed. They glowed with a faint luminescence as if lit from within by something beyond human. They reached the auxiliary hangar where a small frigate waited. As they boarded, a massive explosion rocked the station. Through the viewport, Lyria watched the diplomatic complex, her home for 3 years, tear itself apart. "Everyone secured?" Marcus asked, blood running down his armor. "Captain, you need medical," a soldier started. "After we're clear, pilot, get us out of here." As the ship rocketed away from the dying station, weaving through krill fire with impossible precision, Lyria stared at her husband and realized she'd never really seen him before. Not truly. The frigate limped to a coalition rally point 3 systems away, where the scattered remnants of the defense fleet were regrouping. Marcus finally allowed the medics to treat his wounds, though he remained alert, monitoring tactical displays and coordinating with other ships. Lyria found him in the medical bay after the doctors had finished. The plasma burn on his shoulder was severe, the blade wound deep, but he sat calmly reviewing casualty reports as if he weren't injured at all. "You saved 43 people from that station," she said quietly, entering the room. "The other shuttles were all destroyed if you hadn't been there." Marcus looked up, and for a moment the warrior mask slipped. Exhaustion showed in his eyes, along with something else, pain, but not physical. "I should have saved more. There were at least 200 personnel on that station." "Against impossible odds," Lyria insisted, moving closer. "Marcus, what I saw you do out there, that wasn't just training or skill. You moved like you knew every attack before it came. Your eyes glowed. What are you?" He was quiet for a long moment, studying their bonding marks that gleamed on both their wrists. "Did your diplomatic briefings mention the battle prophets?" Lyria's breath caught. "The ancient warriors. The myths from pre-spaceflight Earth. They're just legends, warriors so connected to combat that they could see the flow of battle, predict outcomes, move in perfect harmony with warfare itself. But those are stories, Marcus, propaganda." "Not propaganda," he said quietly. "Genetics. Rare mutations that appear in about 1 in 10 million humans activated by extreme combat stress. The ability to perceive probability streams in real time, to see multiple possible futures and choose the optimal path." He looked at his scarred hands. "I manifested during the border wars. Saw my entire platoon die while I somehow survived, moving like I was watching myself from outside, making decisions before I consciously thought them. The military knows. Command knows. It's why I'm still alive. They keep sending me to impossible situations because I can see ways through that no one else can." His voice went bitter. "I'm a weapon ambassador, a very effective one. That's all I've ever been." "Is that why you agreed to this marriage?" Lyria asked, suddenly understanding. "They ordered you. They strongly suggested it would be good for my career to accept," Marcus said with dark humor. "But honestly, I agreed because I was tired, Lyria, tired of fighting, of surviving when others died, of being alone in my head with visions of death branching endlessly in every direction. I thought maybe a diplomatic posting, a quiet life would let me rest. But the krill came. They always come." He met her eyes, and she saw ancient weariness there despite his youth. I see it, the battle's coming. The Krill won't stop with one station. I see the probability streams. They converge on invasion, on war. And I see, he paused, something like fear crossing his face. I see myself at the center of it, not as a soldier, but as something more, something I don't understand. Lyria sat beside him, taking his hand instinctively. Through the bonding mark, she felt an echo of his burden, the weight of sight, of knowing, of bearing responsibility for survival. You're not a weapon, Marcus. You're a person who happens to have an extraordinary ability. There's a difference. Is there? He asked, but his hand tightened on hers. I don't know if I remember how to be just a person anymore. Then I'll remind you, Lyria said with sudden conviction. That's what partners do, isn't it? Even in marriages born from duty. For the first time since she'd met him, Marcus Chen smiled, genuinely smiled, and it transformed his entire face. I think I'd like that, Ambassador. Lyria, she corrected gently. If you're Marcus to me, I'm Lyria to you. Lyria, he repeated, testing her name. Then the tactical display beeped urgently and the warrior mask returned. The Krill fleet is moving. They're not retreating, they're advancing on the core worlds. Over the following weeks, Marcus's predictions proved horrifyingly accurate. The Krill launched a full-scale invasion, their forces striking at coalition worlds with coordinated precision. The fragile alliance between humanity and the Velsharan Empire became a desperate military partnership, with Marcus at its center. Lyria watched her husband transform before her eyes. Command promoted him to admiral at age 28, unheard of in Terran military history, but his tactical prescience made him invaluable. He could see the Krill attack patterns before they formed, position fleets in exactly the right places, turn certain defeats into unlikely victories. But the cost showed in his eyes. The constant visions, the probability streams he navigated every moment, slowly consuming him. He's seeing too much, Lyria told the Coalition High Command during a strategy meeting. You're burning him out. He's our only advantage, General Thrace replied coldly. The Krill outnumber us 3-1. Without Admiral Chen's guidance, we lose this war in weeks. And with him, you lose it in months, Lyria countered. I can see what this is doing to him. He barely sleeps, barely eats. You're not wielding a weapon, you're killing him slowly. But Marcus wouldn't stop, couldn't stop. The visions drove him forward with merciless clarity. He saw the paths to victory, narrow and treacherous, and he pursued them with single-minded intensity. The turning point came at the Battle of Velshara Prime, Lyria's homeworld. The Krill committed their entire central fleet to the assault, overwhelming the planet's defenses. Evacuation was impossible. 15 billion Velsharan civilians would die if the planet fell. Command prepared to write it off as a strategic loss. Marcus studied the tactical displays for 72 hours straight, his eyes glowing with constant prophetic sight, searching the probability streams for a path that didn't end in genocide. Lyria stayed with him, forcing him to eat, to drink water, holding him when the visions became too intense. There's a way, he finally said, his voice hoarse. I see it, but it requires perfect timing across 17 simultaneous fleet actions. If even one ship is out of position by 30 seconds, we lose everything. And it requires, he looked at her with haunted eyes, it requires me to enter the battle personally, to see it from inside, to make real-time adjustments no one else can perceive. Marcus, you'll die, Lyria said, having seen the tactical plan. He'd be piloting a fighter into the heart of the Krill formation, exposed to impossible crossfire. "No," he said with quiet certainty. "I've seen this outcome. I survive. But I change." He touched her face gently, the first truly intimate gesture between them. "After this battle, I won't be the man you married, Lyria. The visions show me becoming something more, something other. A true battle prophet, fully manifested. I'll see probability in everything, every moment. I'll never be free of it." "Then I'll help you carry it," she said fiercely. "Execute your plan, Marcus. Save my people, and I'll be here when you return, whoever you become." The Battle of Velshara Prime lasted 16 hours and would be studied for generations. Marcus's fighter danced through the Krill fleet like a silver ghost, impossible to target, drawing fire away from critical points while transmitting real-time tactical adjustments to 17 separate fleet groups. Every ship moved with perfect precision, following his guidance, creating a lethal pattern that trapped the Krill fleet in their own formation. But something happened during the battle, something the recording showed but no one could explain. Marcus's fighter began to glow, surrounded by luminescent energy that pulsed in rhythm with his movements. The glow spread through his entire fleet, connecting ships in a web of light that seemed almost alive. When the last Krill vessel fell, Marcus's fighter returned to the flagship. He emerged from the cockpit transfigured, his eyes permanently luminous, his movements fluid with inhuman grace, his presence radiating power that made veteran soldiers step back involuntarily. He'd become what the ancient texts described, a battle deity, a living weapon who existed partially in the space between possible futures, seeing all paths simultaneously. In the aftermath of Velshara Prime, the Coalition wanted to worship Marcus as a living god. The Terran Defense Force wanted to study him as a specimen. The political alliance demanded he continue fighting, leading fleets to impossible victories, cementing the Coalition's dominance. Lyria found him alone on the observation deck of the flagship, staring at the stars with glowing eyes that saw far beyond the visible spectrum. "They're calling you the battle deity," she said softly, approaching slowly. "The prophet of victory, the immortal admiral. You have 17 official titles now." "I hear them," Marcus replied, his voice carrying strange harmonics as if multiple versions of himself spoke simultaneously. "I see their possible futures, the ways they might use me, exploit me, worship me, fear me. I see it all, Lyria, every moment, every choice, branching endlessly." "Does it hurt?" she asked, standing beside him. "It's beyond hurt, it's everything. I am perceiving more than human minds were meant to hold." He turned to her and she saw the man she'd married struggling inside the deity he'd become. "But I still see you clearly. In all the probability streams, in all the possible futures, you're the one constant, the one choice that never branches." "What do you mean?" "I mean that in every future where I remain sane, where I hold on to what makes me human rather than just a weapon, you're there." He took her hands, his touch warm despite the inhuman glow. "I didn't understand the bonding ceremony when we married. It seemed like empty ritual political theater. But now I see it, truly see it. That mark on our wrists isn't just decoration, it's an anchor. You're my anchor, Lyria, the thing that keeps me connected to linear time, to single choices, to being Marcus Chen and not just an omniscient pattern of probabilities." Tears gathered in Lyria's eyes. "I married you out of duty. I never expected to. To love a man who became a monster. Marcus finished gently. You're not a monster, she said fiercely. You're a man who sacrificed his humanity to save billions, including everyone I love, everyone on my homeworld. You're the bravest person I've ever known, Marcus Chen. And yes, I love you, completely. Despite the strangeness, despite the power, despite everything that frightens me about what you've become. Marcus's glow softened, becoming warmer, almost golden. I see our futures together now. Thousands of possibilities, most of them good. We'll have children. I see them, feel them, know them before they exist. You'll become High Ambassador, the architect of lasting peace. And he paused, wonder in his voice, I'll learn to be human again with your help. The power won't fade, but I'll control it rather than being consumed by it. How do you know? Lyria asked. Because I've seen it, he said simply. I've lived 1,000 versions of our life in the probability streams. And in the best ones, the ones where I'm happiest, where we're happiest, I choose to be your husband first and a battle deity second. I choose love over war. I choose you, Lyria, every single time. She kissed him then, her duty-bound husband who'd become a god of war yet chose to remain a man for her sake. Through their bonding marks, she felt the immensity of his power, and beneath it, the steady warmth of his love, constant across all possible futures. Then let's choose that future together, she whispered against his lips. And in that moment, Marcus Chen stopped seeing probability streams and saw only her, his wife, his anchor, his choice. The battle deity faded and the man remained. Their duty had brought them together, but destiny had given them something neither expected, a love that transcended even the sight of infinite futures. The war would continue. Marcus would fight when necessary, his power undeniable and essential. But he would always return to Lyria, to the choice that anchored him across all probability. The choice to be human, to be loved, to be more than just a weapon. Some called him the battle deity, but to Lyria he was simply Marcus, and that was enough.